Greetings, Sybarites. Anonymous here. So we've got a question that came up a while ago, and I wanted to give a quick answer to it. And that is, how do you use the stances like do-back rider and kneeling stance, as we call them in our system? And it's a good question, because these two stances may seem odd or, in some way unusual. They can be difficult, especially for beginners, so we'll kind of go through it. The first one, do-back rider, is going to be kind of like shoulder width and a half, and then you're going to sit down as if sitting on a do-back. This is, of course, from horse stance in Asian martial arts. Different types of martial arts, you'll use this. Like I said, the feet are going to be parallel. I don't know if you can see my feet, but I will. There you go. So as I said, the feet are parallel. The knees will be going the same direction as the toes. Now, if I stand here to the side, you will notice that my body, this line from my shoulder to my hip, is at about the same angle as the angle of my knee to my ankle. Right? And this is where we kind of want it. It doesn't matter how high or low you go, that stays generally fairly stable. Right? So if you've been told not to let your knee go beyond your toe, you can ignore that as long as this is kept in place. Now, the big emphasis of this stance is on the hip and hip flexion, sitting down, right? And this is going to come in a lot with any athletic endeavor that you do. Now, this position in regular sports is called athletic ready. And it's essentially just the ready position that we intuitively get into if we're going to get ready, right? And it's dropping the center down low, putting the weight and centering it in the back of the leg, into the hamstrings and the glutes, right? We've got a little bit of an incline to the upper body, and now we're active. We can move both back and forth and forward and backward. That way, like that. We can take steps and all this. And notice, if I'm doing this like this, I'm not changing levels. I'm not doing this. And that's one of the reasons that we practice this. We try to get this athletic ready stance so that this is where we are launching everything from. Now, we can go into higher stances if we want, but we want to delineate which stance is which. This is where we want to be most of the time. If we find ourselves up here a lot, we're going to be very immobile, and they're probably going to get way too close to us way too quickly. So that's really what this is for. Now, also, it trains a very good swordsman stance, right? So as we are like this, if I turn to this side and open up this foot, now I'm in a fairly good single-handed stance. Right? You can keep the feet parallel and still do that. It makes your leg a little bit more of a target that way. But other than that, that's what it's. That's another really good way to do it. Because when I'm in line and I push this foot forward, I am nice and balanced. I don't have to worry about crossing my feet because I was just in one line, right? So that when I open up, now I've got a little bit of a base of support and I can go back and forth. Now this leads into kneeling stance, right? Which down here like this, but really anything you really want, right? Okay. And this is really training that crouch. Now, we don't want the knee to actually touch the ground, right? Because if we put 3 points to the ground, that does make us more stable, but it also makes us a little bit more immobile. It's harder to get up from one knee actually resting on the ground. If we stay active, we can lower and raise our whole carriage as one piece, so that if I'm fighting an opponent over here and they do an attack to my head, I can duck down and access their lower body. Now, of course, I need to be able to guard my head, because that's what's going to be vulnerable. So if I go down here like this, right, oops, don't turn it off, but bring it up. So coming here, there. Now, oftentimes what you'll see in free play is somebody taking it, going down low, and running through past the opponent and doing a draw cut across the body. And that's probably the most common use of that particular stance. Again, we are looking at the hip as the major factor in this stance. This hip is going to be taking most of your weight. You got a little bit in this one, and it goes down to the ball of the foot in the back, right? But other than that, most of it's kind of in the front. It's a very forward stance, it's very mobile, it's very aggressive, and of course, it's low. So there you go. So that was just a little quick primer on those two stances and how they're kind of used in real free play, combat, if you will. Sparring, we don't really combat each other. We play at combat. But they do have use. They may seem a little odd, a little abstract, but they actually have a lot of use in pretty much every sense, athletically, tactically, and all of that stuff. And squats are good for you, right? You want to do a lot of squats in a day. So anytime you're lowering down here, that's a good thing, right? Make yourself shorter. All right. Okay. So hopefully that will be helpful to some people. Hopefully I answered the question sufficiently to the person who asked it. We will break for now and get back to it. So until next time, have a great day. Happy sabering.